because ads, what they do, I feel like they amplify the result of your selling process. And it amplifies no matter what. So if your selling process is broken, it will amplify your broken selling process. If your product is not awesome, it will amplify that too.
Welcome to the Agents of Change, the podcast experience you've been waiting for your entire marketing career. Search, social, mobile, AI, blockchain, and neuromarketing. These are the Agents of Change, and so are you. Digital marketing success awaits, and your transformation begins now.
Welcome to another episode of the Agents of Change podcast, the podcast that helps you reach and engage more of your ideal customers online so that you can grow your business. My name's Rich Brooks. I'm your host. This is episode 599, powered by Flight Media. 599. I mean, episode 600 is so close, I can almost taste it. How about you? Today we're talking about ads, digital ads, social ads that perform on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. If you don't think ads work for your company or you've seen the ROI of your ads drop, then you'll want to stay until the end of the episode because we're going to look at what works in social ads today and how you can start getting better results tomorrow. Hey, when was the last time you got some real insights from GA4? I mean, where you saw something and realized that your marketing was working or needed to change. Actionable insights that drive sales and business. At Flight, we pride ourselves on optimizing analytic tools like GA4 and Microsoft Clarity to tell you what you need to know to grow your business. Even if you're all set on your marketing, you can hire us to audit and optimize your analytics. If your eyes glaze over when you're looking at your reports, it's time to give us a call. Just reach out at takeflight.com or theagentsofchange.com and I'll get right back to you. Okay, that's enough from our sponsor. Let's dive into today's episode. My next guest supports coaches and course creators in simplifying their ad strategy so they can grow confidently without the overwhelm. She brings practical insights from managing millions in Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest ad spend, showing audiences how to simplify their ad strategy, optimize what's already working, and scale sustainably without overwhelm. Today, we're going to be talking about what's working now with paid social with Karen Nelson. Karen, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So what was your origin story? How did you first get into digital advertising?
Well, it's sort of a different one. I actually was a classroom teacher for 15 years before I decided I needed to step back from teaching. And I was blogging as a teacher about technology, and early childhood was my blog, and realized that the marketing side of that blogging was super fun, and got a job with an educational marketing agency. So went straight from the classroom with other teachers to this marketing agency where we were selling to other teachers. When I was there, I realized I loved the tech of social media ads way more than the content creation part. And so I'm like, I could do this. And I went out on my own and started an agency about 7-8 years ago to really zero in on that and work some with teachers, but also with course creators. A lot of people do tend to be in the education space in one way or another in my little circle.
Absolutely. Excellent. So as I mentioned in the intro, digital ads are constantly changing, constantly evolving. From your perspective, what's actually working right now on platforms like Meta and Pinterest, or should we take these platforms one at a time?
Maybe, we can generalize a little bit because I think some of the bigger themes are the same. And I would say that maybe one of the biggest things that's working right now with all digital advertising, all digital marketing is showing up authentically in a real way. I think that we sort of got burnt out on digital marketing a little bit in the pandemic when we were all home in front of our screens and lost a little bit of trust. And so when you can rebuild that by showing up to your customers, even like we are now, having a real conversation that's you're going to see us stumble over our words a little bit. That authenticity is what's working for our clients. The sort of providing proof that they're real through their advertising strategy.
Give me an example of that, because obviously authenticity is a word that people throw around all the time. So can you anchor that with like one or two examples of like something that's truly authentic versus something, I don't know if it's just polished or whatever it would be, but the alternative to that?
Yeah. I think it is being willing to be real and have your mistakes out there a little bit, like I am now. I don't have a formula scripted thing that I'm saying, and I might mix my words up or different things like that. So it's partly that. And it's doing that in a way that people can see you. And then it's also partnering your ads, which might be a little more flat, with that authentic experience. And so instead of driving traffic to maybe some sort of flat asset, driving traffic to a place where you can show up and engage with your clients and customers, and they can see, oh my gosh, I like her. I trust her. I would give her my money. I might not give this random person I don't know, but I'll give her my money because I've seen her in person a little bit.
All right. So that authenticity needs to lead to more of that feeling of connection with another human being. Okay.
Absolutely. And I think especially now with AI too, we're in this place where we don't trust anything anymore. And so the more we can prove that we're not robots, the better off we are in terms when it comes to selling our products.
Until the robots learn to be imperfect. But I hear what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. That's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
So we can talk about Meta and Pinterest both as together and then also separately. How do you see those two platforms, Pinterest and Meta, working together when it comes to retargeting or breadcrumb trails for customers?
I love the way that they work together because they hit the customer at two different places in their buying journey. And it works really sort of well to synergize. Pinterest is really a search-based platform. And so our ads are usually placed in front of people when they've come to Pinterest to search for something they want, kind of like Google, but images and videos. And so you get someone when they're like, hey, I know that I'm remodeling my kitchen and I need cabinets. And so you put a cabinet ad right up in front of them because they've searched kitchen cabinets. That works really well. You can't do that on Facebook. It's more interruption marketing. You are talking to someone when they are sitting on their couch, maybe looking at TV halfway and reading social media the other way. And they aren't thinking about their cabinets. But if you take the fact that you captured their attention on Pinterest and then showed that exact person an ad on Facebook, they're much more likely to look at it. So you can retarget the people that you showed your ad to in the first place on Pinterest, where they're at the beginning of their journey, and bring them in again with Facebook. And that works in a lot of different industries. So it's ads at different places in the journey to create a whole sales process.
That makes sense. Over the years, we've had people come on and talk about Pinterest, and very often Pinterest experts don't talk about it as a social platform. They talk about it as a search platform or a discovery platform. So it is somebody's actively looking for something versus just understanding who that person is and putting interruption ads in front of them.
Yes.
That's what it sounds like. Okay.
Absolutely.
So you also talked about like being imperfect, being authentic. So when you're working with clients, are you seeing that video is playing a bigger role? Are you doing exclusively video ads? Is it a mix of both video and images and text?
Yeah, right now it really is both. There was a time when video was still sort of up and coming that we could get much cheaper cost with video most of the time. But we seem to have gone past that time a little bit. And now Meta especially really likes it when we can come at it with both angles, with both a video piece and an image piece. And it goes after the placement that it can get least expensively. And it's varying now. Before we were getting really cheap leads on video, but now having both in the mix really seems to get us the best results. If we just go one way or the other, it doesn't seem to play as nicely with the Meta system.
One of the complaints that I've heard and I've seen in our own work is that, for those of us who have been doing Facebook ads long enough, the hyper targeting that we used to enjoy as marketers and fear as human beings has kind of gone away. And we don't have that granular level of targeting. What do you think about how do we make up for that? If we can't target people as accurately, what are you doing on your end to make sure that the ads are still landing?
Yeah, it's been an interesting evolution because for so long as Facebook ads, people were like, I know how to target, so that's why you should pay me the money. And that's not really the advantage anymore. And so what we're having to do is, instead of doing this micro targeting and niched audiences, is we're having to switch that energy to the ad creative, the images, the words, and the videos, and use that for targeting, because the algorithm will use it for targeting, but also really be in tune with who our buyer is, what problem we are solving for them, and what words will actually speak to them, and being very specific about that in the creative, in the images and the words. So specifically calling out, when I'm reaching course creators, I say course creators, or if I got a client who's selling an art course, artists, using language and images that will draw them in and tell the algorithm, Pinterest and Facebook, where to go look, because it will notice who clicks and then go, oh, okay, I can go find more artists. I know where those are, even though I maybe didn't get the chance to say, hey, Facebook, I'm looking for artists here. Our copy and our images tell people that, which then in turn tells Facebook where to find our people.
So when we're starting a new ad campaign, maybe we've never advertised on social before, or maybe we've done it, but it's a new campaign, where should we start? What are some of the first things that we should be thinking of? Are we starting with the creatives? Are we starting with the targeting? Is there something else that I'm not considering that is really the beginning of a successful ad campaign as you see it when you're working with your clients?
Well, I would actually take it back even further. And my philosophy is really that the successful ad campaign begins with a successful product and a successful selling process. You really have to have those dialed in before you run ads to it, because ads, what they do, I feel like they amplify the result of your selling process. And it amplifies no matter what. So if your selling process is broken, it will amplify your broken selling process. If your product is not awesome, it will amplify that too. So the first thing you do is you make sure you have those two processes really dialed in. So you've got a good product and it sells, because then there are fewer things to get aligned with when it does come to actually setting up the ads. And at that point, that's when I would lean into messaging. And we sort of look at what we were talking about before. What does the buyer really want? What problem are we solving for them? And how can we communicate that with our images and words and our creative? Because if we can get that part right, the targeting kind of falls into place. It's not the hard part like it used to be. It's making sure that we're talking to our customers in a way that they understand. Because if we've got a product that sells and we can convince them that it's a good product, Meta does a lot of the work for us now, and so does Pinterest. They're a lot smarter than they were, I think, when both you and I started with this ads journey.
All right. So with the caveat that these platforms have gotten better at helping us identify and getting in front of our ideal clients, we're starting a cold campaign. We have a new offer, we have a new product, we have a new line, whatever it is. What are some of the first type of ads that we want to run to this cold audience? How do we break through to these people, and all we know is that we're hoping to get in front of whatever it is, whether it's teachers, whether it's construction people, whatever the is? What are you working with your clients on in that first cold opening?
With my clients, we tend to start with lead generation, because most of my clients are selling a course or selling a small digital product that they can sell through email. And so lead generation gives us a really good look at maybe how much our audience is going to cost, what our clicks are going to look like, what our creative is looking like. And it also gives us a little bit of payoff, because if you just run ads, putting them out there to kind of see if you get clicks, you don't ever get to talk to the person again. But if you do a lead generation ad where they're signing up on your email list or on your text list, you have the chance to sell to them later when you've really got your sales process dialed in. So we start with the lead generation, and then we usually will put in some product ads, some selling ads pretty quickly after that. And sometimes we start with the product ad. It depends on what the client's previous experience is. But I like to start with lead gen because we get really clear data, and it's the data that informs our later decisions.
Okay. Now, are you still advertising to people once you've got them to sign up for an email newsletter or whatever the thing would be, or do you leave them alone and then go out and try and find more cold audience members that might be interested in your offer?
Yeah, we are always advertising to anyone who's come into our orbit. And that's something that we do intentionally as an agency, but it's also something that Meta and Pinterest do for us, is this whole idea of retargeting the existing customer over and over again. because they are the ones who are most likely to buy, or even the person who signed up for your email list. What we're finding often is with these lead gen campaigns, another thing we can do is we get someone to sign up for the free thing and then quickly sell them something on the back end of that free thing. And then because they've built that trust that we were talking about at the very beginning, they will then go on to buy more things. And so we send them ads, both intentionally with campaigns set up to do that, a retargeting campaign, but also knowing that that's how Pinterest and Meta work now with their algorithm. They are better at finding the people who've engaged with your brand before, even in a cold campaign.
All right. So we've got some we've come up with an ad campaign. We've got it out there. We're getting leads or we're getting sales from it. Or I should say, let's just say we're getting clicks from it. We're driving them off of Facebook if that is our intent, or off Pinterest. How do we make a landing page, or do we even need a landing page? Like, what right now is working for ads today as it comes to landing pages for our products or services or our offers?
We were just working with this with one of my clients, and it varies depending on the client. That's one thing. We're not very cookie cutter in what works with our clients. Different things work, but generally short, clear, and direct is working really well. Our client had a lead generation page that they were doing, and it had all sorts of language on it about why this lead gen thing was so awesome. I think it was, in this case, it's a webinar. And we just weren't getting people to sign up at the right rate. One of the things you can do is you can track the clicks and compare them to signups and expect that at least 20% of those clicks will sign up. And we were at like 10%. And the client and I worked together to shorten the landing page, and our click to sign up rate jumped to 30% because people aren't taking a lot of time. They're making quicker decisions, skimming, because we've gotten lazy in our old age. And so really clear marketing, really clear language makes the biggest difference. And it's the same with my digital product sellers also. Making sure your product box is very clear. Also, usually with some sort of social proof or testimonial on there, with even right in the product description. This was great with my students because of X, Y, and Z. That really helps drive the sale.
All right. Now, I'm sure you've heard from your clients. I know I've heard from my clients. Ads don't work for my business. So when you hear that, what is your go-to response?
My go-to response is, well, a couple things. One, ads maybe don't work for every business, but also it's probably not the ads. It's oftentimes how we get the person from the advertising platform to the product offer, and that it's something in that journey between the ad and the chance to purchase that's actually broken. Because most of the times we can get attention on these social platforms pretty easily. The hard part is taking that attention and transforming it into someone who wants to buy. And that's where the real hard work comes in, and goes back to what I was talking about, making sure that what you're getting ready to amplify with ads will amplify well.
Absolutely. Now, here I'm in Maine. Many businesses are seasonal, and the summer season can be especially short. For businesses that have or rely on seasonal demand or short campaign windows, what can they learn from launch style advertising?
Well, it actually aligns pretty well because the launch style is also almost a seasonal thing. It's usually about 6 to 8 weeks of promotion in different phases. And so it's, even though it's short, it's really well planned in terms of what we're doing, in terms of getting leads, nurturing the leads with our ads, and then closing the sale later. And if you have a seasonal business, you could probably start your ads a little bit before your season starts to get on the radar, and then maybe start collecting some information about who your ideal client is going to be, and then have a push with a sale or a discount or something to deliver that. And we do that in our launch situation. And then also with my seasonal clients, we have started formatting their sales season like a launch, where we spend the time before the launch collecting email, just doing lighter visibility campaigns, lighter product campaigns, and then scaling the products that we see getting attention into the heavy season and going hard when we know people are buying the item. For my clients, most of them sell a lot in the late summer and fall. This is high season for most of them.
Right. So I've heard other agencies say, oh, you can't do it in under 3 months, you can't do it in under 6 months, whatever it is. What do you feel is the shortest time period that you can successfully run ads on Meta without sacrificing like the quality of conversions? And are there any ways that you know of to shorten that learning curve for the algorithms that propel our ads?
Yeah, the shortest window. That is such an interesting question. But it makes sense because I know that's a lot of clients. They don't want to spend a lot of money on this learning part, but it is such an important part of how Meta works. I like to tell my clients when we're spending money on Meta, we are not actually necessarily buying the conversions or even the ads. We're buying data from Meta about how to run better ads and how quickly we can acquire that data. I think it really varies from client to client. I've had some clients show up where within a month, we know this is working, your products sell, we can amplify this and we can go. I've had other clients where it's taken us several months to test different things, experiment with different offers, and realize, oh, actually, it's not that sales mechanism that works. But if we promote this one over here, we can get some signups, we can get some conversions. And so I guess I would say the shortest window is a month, but I would also say that's probably pretty unusual because
on the extreme side for sure.
There's not any real formula, I don't think, for most people. There's a few things that you can try, but it's really hard to find one method that works for everybody in my experience.
And is spending more money in that time period, does that speed up the process? I've heard that from some people. Or is that just like, it doesn't matter. There's got to be a certain amount of time that you're just going to let the machine learning do its thing?
Yeah, well, it's the kind of thing that we have to think about with launches because we're doing most of our high spend in a 14-day period. It's a longer period, like I talked about, but you have to do it in that 14-day spend period. And in my opinion, that's just not quite enough time for Meta to learn what it needs to learn to spend the money well, even when you're spending a lot of money. Yes, spending more money will get you results more quickly, but there's also truth to the fact that somebody on a Sunday afternoon is going to buy differently than a Thursday morning. Someone at Christmas is going to buy differently than someone in, middle of winter. And so you kind of have to take all of those things into account.
Definitely makes sense. When you're working with your clients, how do you help them build a better nurture process that turns clicks into sales? What are some of the bumps in the road that you often see, and how do you help smooth those out?
Yeah, that is one of the things one of the most important things that happens, especially with Meta ads, because they are those interruption ads like we talked about. People are showing up when they aren't necessarily primed to be looking at your product. And so the follow-up from that engagement has to be on point. And so if it is a lead generation ad, then your emails have to be really dialed in to get from random person surfing on the couch to buyer. And you also have to consider other messaging, like maybe texting or finding other ways to bring them back to where they started in maybe a buying process. Like we were talking about, serving ads to them once when they're cold, but then again and again and again until they've seen your ad a few times and are like, oh yeah, I did like that. I do want to buy from them. And also circling back, I trust them because I've seen them enough times and seen them in these different circumstances.
All right. Now it feels like, at least to me, I've started thinking more about our conversation in the Meta universe. Are there differences when it comes to Pinterest? All these things that we've been talking about in terms of the targeting and the things that develop into a good campaign, clicks into sales. How does that shift when we shift our attention to Pinterest, or does it change?
A lot of the foundational principles are pretty similar. It's about identifying a customer journey. And when we're on Pinterest, we still do the top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. That's jargon. But we think about customers when they're just getting interested in the idea. And then we show them ads a second time after they've maybe engaged with us the first time, and then show them when we think they're closer to buying. It's that same process, but we don't have to always necessarily work as hard for the sale because they are in that search environment, which is really helpful. And then it's also really helpful to put it into play with a meta ad because we can kind of hit them at both angles from both directions. But the buying process, it's pretty similar. And the targeting on Pinterest, there's a little more capacity to narrow in on your audience than there is with Meta right now. But Pinterest generally runs a few steps behind Meta and generally sort of echoes Meta. So it will be interesting to see if they lean into this AI buying model as much as Meta has and start to take away control too.
All right. Now, you must see a lot of other messages from other ad experts out there in the field. What is one thing you hear from other experts that you just completely disagree with?
Yeah, there's a couple, but I think the one that I lean into most is that ads are the right thing for everybody and that they're the magic bullet that will fix your business. And I don't think everybody thinks, all of my peers think that they're a magic bullet, but a lot of people think, I'll sign any client. I can make ads work for your business. We can do it. And I don't think that's always true. And even if we can make ads work, I don't think that's the best mechanism for some businesses. And here I am, an agency owner. You're an agency owner. We love ads. But I do think that there are some businesses where the selling mechanism can happen a different way and can start a different way. And they can have a profitable setup without ads.
Right. Now, if our listeners wanted to take one step forward to improving their own ad performance today, what's the single most important action that you would recommend?
I would recommend that they dial in their selling process and just get really clear about how they sell their product and think about if a stranger on the internet sees this in a social media ad and sees my product or sees my offer, will they then go become a buyer? Or will I have to take steps to get them there? Will I have to send them through a process? And if you don't have a process for them to go through, that's your action item. Build a way to get someone from cold social media to buyer.
All right. For people who want to learn more about you and how you can help them with their ads, where can we send them online?
You can send them to KarenNelsonDigital.com. And over there, I have a little lead magnet that's called Are You Ready for Ads? That some people might appreciate just because what we were just talking about, some people are ready, some people maybe aren't.
All right. And we will have those links in the show notes. Karen, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate your expertise.
It was great to talk with you. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
For a full transcript of today's episode, along with the show notes, the links that Karen shared with us, a blog post all about everything I've learned, just head on over to our website at theagentsofchange.com/599. So when potential guests come on and they ask me, who is our audience? I often respond that you are the owners and marketers of real world businesses. And by that, I mean that you've told me that you're interested in learning about YouTube to help promote your business, but not to become a YouTuber. Along those lines, I was thinking about Karen's core message. Every successful ad campaign starts with a simple question. Will this help real people solve real problems? When you lead with value instead of tactics, when you choose authenticity over perfection, you're not just running ads, you're becoming an agent of change.
Don't miss another thrilling episode of the Agents of Change podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform.